نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Ibrahim alayhi salam has left Egypt. The king of Egypt has married his daughter, whose name was Hajar, to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam settles in Palestine, close to the area that we call Al-Quds or Bayt al-Maqdis. And he has decided that he will spend the rest of his life inviting the people of that region to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshipping Allah azza wa jal and establishing this place called Bayt al-Maqdis. Shortly after, Ibrahim alayhi salam is blessed with a child, and he was making a lot of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this child. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that your prayers have been heard. So he then decides to name this child Ismail. And Ismail in that language actually means that God has listened, God has heard. Il in the Aramaic language meant Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, and Sama' or Shama' means heard. So the Hebrew language is also derived. A lot of these languages have common roots, common what we call etymology. So Ismail means God listened, God accepted the prayer. So now Ismail alayhi salam, this newborn baby is there, and in the middle of all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives Ibrahim alayhi salam the instruction to take Ismail and his mother Hajar to Makkah. And he is not just to take them to Makkah, but he has to leave them there in Makkah. Now Ibrahim alayhi salam is going through one series of tests after another. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested Ibrahim alayhi salam with certain instructions, with kalimat, many instructions. فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. He completed and perfected every single one. Think of it as levels in a challenge. You complete one level, you go to the next level, and so on and so forth. Ibrahim alayhi salam kept passing every level of challenge, every level of test. So he kept moving on to the next level. And every level got more and more difficult. So this one was going to be possibly the most difficult one yet. He had faced off against his family, his nation, his people, the king. He had been thrown into the fire. He had to leave his homeland. He had gone into a foreign land where his wife had been taken captive, then he had been saved from there. And now he is told to leave his homeland, not permanently, but to go and take his beloved wife and this beloved son that Allah has given him after so many years of prayer, to go and leave them there. So he takes this family of his, and they cross the deserts and the mountains. And in some narrations it's mentioned that he just took one water skin filled with water and a little bit of food for himself and his family. And it was only a matter of time before all of that finished and the hardships of the journey started. So of course it would take long hours and days before they could find food. The journey was very perilous. But after this great, long, difficult journey, when he finally reached his place, and in between the mountains, the black mountains of Makkah, which are surrounded by rocky and dry desert land, بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ, a valley that has no vegetation. And there, at that same spot where the Kaaba is today, Ibrahim alayhi salam lays down his son, and he turns around and starts walking away. And he is not given the instructions that he has to explain what he's doing to his wife, which is a very difficult thing. He starts walking away and she keeps asking, "Where are you going? How can you leave us here? What's going on?" And he looked, but he did not reply. So after asking a few times, Hajar asked him that, "Allahu amaraka bihada? Has Allah commanded you to do this?" So he simply nodded his head. So she cried out, "إِذَنْ لَا يُضَيِّعُنَا." If that's the case, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never let us go to waste. He will never ruin us. She also had that iman, that strength, that if there is an instruction coming from Allah, that instruction is not coming to make us miserable or to make us lose something. That instruction, in fact, is coming to give us something bigger than what we have right now. And every commandment of Allah is like that. Every commandment of Allah that He gives to us, it's to give us something bigger than what we already have. Imagine if we started viewing our deen like this. If we started viewing all of these commandments that are in the Quran, all of the instructions given to us by Rasulullah like this, that Allah wants to give me something through this, something that I can't get without fulfilling this instruction. We would stop seeing our deen as a to-do list, that, oh, now I have to do this, I have to do this. We would stop seeing it as obligations. We would stop seeing it as burdens. And those things that Allah has told us to stay away from, we would stop seeing them as restrictions. Every one of those instructions would be a gateway for us, that through this I am going to get something even more than what I have right now. So that was the mindset of this brave woman who said those words without knowing what's about to happen, having absolutely no clue what is going to occur, having no resources in her hands, no means of survival, no food, no drink, no people for support, no shelter, there in the sun, in the intense heat, in the middle of these mountains that are in the middle of this desert. She says, Allah will never waste us. So sometimes there are uncertainties. You go to fulfill an instruction of Allah and you're not sure exactly what's going to happen. But that's the beauty of it. You don't have to know exactly what's going to happen. All you need is your faith at that time, which will tell you that the outcome of this can only be good. There might be a bit of trials, there might be a bit of tests, but as long as I am doing what Allah wants me to do, the outcome can only be good. There is no such thing as a bad consequence, and there is no such thing as a loss that comes out of a commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us this understanding. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi.